I touched on verse 101 in the previous video, but I'm going to say a little bit more about it now. So verse 101. An individual mind is evolved by clinging to mind in itself. There is no visible world outside mind itself. Therefore, it is declared that mind only exists. Professor Suzuki, the translator, would refer to this as a statement of the mind-only doctrine. But as Enlightenment practitioners, we're not interested in doctrines. We're interested in practice. And in order to practice, we must remember to practice. That's what this verse and the next few verses are about, even if they might seem a little bit on the technical or the philosophical side. Again, we're not interested in stating a philosophical position. We're interested in remembering our realization. And this realization is to do with the essential nature of our ordinary consciousness, awareness, what's referred to here as mind. Mind with a capital M. And there's also this thing called the individual mind. This is the mind which is thinking, the mind which is weighing things up, the mind which has its likes and its dislikes. This is the mind, the discriminating mind, which assumes there is a reality outside of itself, that there are things out there which are desirable or which are not desirable. But whether something is desirable or undesirable or provokes no response, they all arise in awareness. We are aware of them. And it's this awareness which, as Enlightenment practitioners, we return to. It says here, an individual mind is evolved by clinging to mind in itself. You would think if it was clinging to mind, then there'd be instant liberation. And if we could realize this, well, there would be instant liberation. This would happen when we realize that what we're aware of is actually no different from the awareness itself. It's like the whirlpool in the water. The whirlpool has its own momentum. It's spinning around something. It's caught up in itself. It's divorced from the bigger picture, and yet it's no different from the big picture. It consists only of the big picture. And realizing this, we move beyond the whirlpool, we move beyond the vortices of the mind to realization of the big picture. The big picture which is consciousness or awareness itself. The stumbling block here is appreciating that what we're aware of is of the same nature as awareness. In other words, all the objects, people, feelings, passions that we experience are all of the nature of awareness. So this has to be looked into, this has to be examined. The nature of everything that we're experiencing needs to be examined. This is what the scientists or the physicists do. So it's interesting to see what they come up with. But we can just examine how consciousness works. And the clearest way we've got for examining how consciousness works is in dreams, where everything is of the same nature. Everything in the dream is of the nature of dream. It's of the nature of the awareness of the dreamer. And what's the difference between dream and wakefulness? How do we know we're awake right now and not dreaming? Well, we don't really need to worry about that, because what we can say for sure is consciousness is at work. Consciousness is in operation right now. This is our fundamental reality. And this is our enlightenment practice, realizing that there's no visible world outside mind itself, and therefore coming back to mind only, coming back to this awareness, this pure awareness. So in this verse we've got another description of enlightenment practice. First of all, we realize that we're not practicing, that we're caught up in the dynamics of our individual mind. We remember our realization that this is all mind, this is all awareness. And this isn't just a conceptual thing. It comes back to a sense of being. We become centered once again. We become centered in our own bigness, our sense of being. And then we remember our realization. Our realization is refreshed once again. Our realization of this fundamental reality is realized, is refreshed once again. And we're practicing.